yogurt in the morning. So one way that you can kind of reintroduce these foods into your diet is by following this step 2 here, which is the reintroduction. And this was done by the Whole30, and it's in this order because typically these show the least reactions to our system to the greatest reactions in our system. Okay, so it doesn't have to necessarily be in this order. I'm just following what they did. But basically the point is, reintroduce one food group at a time, and these are the food groups broken down, and see how your body reacts to them. Okay, so that's a good understanding of, is my body able to digest this food without having negative side effects, and is that something that you want to reintroduce back to your body? So you might be able to handle dairy just fine, and you can reintroduce that. You might find that gluten is something that your body really doesn't react well to. It gives you that bloating feeling again. You're like, hey, you know what? That's not worth it to reintroduce back to my diet. So that's kind of a good way to go back through, reintroduce these food groups, see how you react to it now that you've had a cleanse day, or a cleanse month rather, and have a good idea, say, is this worth it, and do I want to introduce it? Okay? So kind of looking at this 10-day step here, this would be what would come next week. So, looking at these, we're going to introduce one food group at a time, and then ask yourself these questions. Have I experienced like any of these symptoms? Because these symptoms are all negative symptoms that we don't want within our bodies, right? It's like going to cause like the inflammation, the blood sugar spikes, things like that. So, first day would be legumes. So legumes would be things like beans, peanut butter is in that category. So it would be eating a general Whole30 diet still, and then adding these things into maybe your 3 meals. So maybe at breakfast you have something and you put peanut butter on it. And at lunch you have something that you put like, cooked beans in or something like that. And adding those things in, and then going back to our Whole30 diet for a couple days and just notice, like just keep an eye out and notice, do you experience any of those things? Has it changed from what you've been experiencing over the last 3 days?
So just do the beans on day 1 and then 2 and 3.
Back to normal, back to Whole30. Yeah, so you just added it once, back to Whole30 because now your body you know how your body reacts over those 3 days. So you've kind of regulated your system and see, is there a change? Because the only thing that's changed now is adding those. Nothing else has changed. So then you can get an idea, okay, how did the legumes, that one food group, affect my body? And you can make a decision whether or not that's something that you want to add back in, based off of how you feel. Okay, so following that system, it kind of goes down. So day 4, adding in non-gluten grains. So these are corn or rice-based products. So things like white rice, tortilla chips, and quinoa.
That's one thing I want.
They are my favorite thing ever. And like something like quinoa. So same thing, on that day you might add in something, add some quinoa or white rice in like your lunch or dinner, have some tortilla chips, Whole30 for 2 days again, and ask yourself these same questions, see how your body responded to them. Okay? And you just follow that throughout each of the remaining 2 food groups. Day 7 is dairy. So this is a big one. Some people, like Kendra was saying, very lactose intolerant, might not be something she wants to add back in, but hey, give it a try for a day and see, is it that one specific thing, or maybe it was gluten and not the dairy.
I think it was gluten.
And you can be able to eliminate a food group, or narrow in on what exactly was causing symptoms within your body before. Okay?
So basically you're giving yourself the 3 days to identify.
Exactly.
And then you can reintroduce.
Yep, exactly. And then the last one would be gluten-containing grains. So these are things like our wheat or rye or barley, muffins, breads, pastas, kind of like that, like the carbs.
Where do oats fall?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, can you get like gluten-free oatmeal? Is that where
Yeah, so
that?
you're saying like a gluten-free oatmeal or something like that? Is that what you're asking?
What if I didn't do gluten, if I just use like instant oatmeal?
Oats, that would be in like a gluten-containing grain.
So then unless you get like lunch,
Yeah.
gluten-free.
Yep. If you get you can get like gluten-free ones and things like that and add them back in on day 4. Yeah.
Where's alcohol?
That would be, it wasn't in here, but just my opinion is that would probably be in here because usually that's like a barley. A barley, so like a wheat or a barley is or if it's like a wine, like a sugar, so that would be in the gluten-containing grains. So that would fall into day 10.
You guys understand the why of this? Of why, like, it really makes a lot of sense. You just did a complete experiment with your body, and if you just introduce everything at once, like, you'll never know what was, like, oh, I felt like crap. But, like, one thing at a time, it's just doing an experiment of how everything works. It's a phenomenal
Right, that's
system.
how I felt with my cramps, because I'm like, okay, those started when I was 12.
Yeah.
So I wasn't drinking alcohol when I was 12, so it was not the alcohol. Is it bread? Is it dairy? that I've had my whole life.
Right.
That's given
And
me
it's like
such
you really don't
intense
know.
fetal position cramps.
Yeah.
And now they're gone.
Just
So
table sugar. Just,
no, I
Well, like, so I put sugar in my coffee, or.
that would be the gluten free.
Yep, can't wait to see what makes it feel crap.
Alright. So that makes sense. So kind of the reintroduction phase, right?
With almond milk, do they 7 days?
I'm sorry?
Almond milk or almond flour, would that be day 7?
Almond milk or almond flour, it depends on what's, and so almond flour is something that you could have now, because it's just ground almonds. Almond milk, it just depends, like look at your brands, because everything has different, so just read the ingredients within that, and you should be able to categorize it. I think most almond milks would probably fall in here, because they usually have like a rice product in them.
So just read. We can desertify stuff with the whole 30 approved ingredients again.
What was that?
We can desertify stuff, like we can make like those paleo things now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
As long as it's yogurt or sugar, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so say sugar was the first thing I introduced, I could
Right.
do honey
Right.
and something.
And so one thing that they did say is obviously be aware, like your energy levels is probably going to change within this, because when we add any of these things in, there's going to be a source of sugar. So even though it's not like table sugar, like if we're adding something in like a honey or an agave, like that's still a sugar that's going to change our, like it's going to change our patterns, our blood sugar. So just being aware that like pretty much sugar is going to fall into all these categories on their own.
Okay.
So after that, life after the Whole 30, so we finish these 10 days, you kind of decide, hey, you know, I really am going to add my cream back into my coffee and have my yogurt at breakfast, but I'm going to continue on with keeping, you know, grains and gluten out of my diet or something like that. So you can make that decision for yourself based off of how, you know, like the structure of your life, things that, you know, your daily commute, whatever it is, you know, just preparation, whatever it is, family, all that kind of thing. You can make those decisions for yourself based off of how you feel. Just keeping in mind, like, basically you're asking the question, like, is it worth it to add it back in? And what are the side effects? And just understanding what the side effects are with those food groups. So after then, those 10 days, we kind of say, okay, we understand that we're going to add these things back in. And the whole point of life after the Whole 30, or like doing the Whole 30 as a cleanse, is to understand your relationship with food. And I think we talked about that when we went back to like our tally, our wins, right? Understanding what your relationship with food was. So they made this awesome, which Nick was like laughing when he read, this awesome like guide to off-roading map to basically decide like, okay, if I'm gonna have like a treat here or there, or it's a holiday, or like my mom makes like these awesome cookies and I'm gonna go over and have some of these cookies, deciding like, is it worth it? Okay, so having candy at your desk at work, like really not something that's worth it. It doesn't have any like emotional or like family value like to the core of adding that food group back in. It's just for like pleasure at that moment in time. There's really no deeper meaning behind that like cheap food that you're gonna add back in, right? So this is kind of like this guide helps you determine like if we're gonna have some type of a cheat or something like that, is it worth it? And understanding what that relationship with that food is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's kind of the guide to off-roading. So I expect you all to have that in your wallets and like pull them out when you go to the restaurant. Cool? And then the last part is what's really awesome about this, and I know that a couple of people, I know like Lori Landry, she did this because she did the Whole 30 and then like went on for a little bit and then kind of got back on it, is that this is a really great check-in for you when you need like a reality check with your nutrition. Okay, so if, like, say the holidays come up and you're like, I just really got off of courses, doing really well, I fell into great habits, and then the holidays came up between like Christmas and New Year's, like it did for Nick and I, and you kind of get back off track. What's really great is if you go back to this, you can reestablish like your good habits and remind yourself the benefits, all those things we talked about, your wins that you experienced within the Whole 30, you can experience those again. It doesn't necessarily have to be 30 days every time, but going back to like the core values of what we did within the last 30 days and doing it for a week or doing it for 2 weeks and adding those back in so that you can just kind of like refocus yourself to move forward. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Any questions?
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
It would be really cool if we could all submit a recipe and somehow create like a recipe book.
I love that idea.
Something.
Okay, I love that idea.
It was hard finding recipes, like and scanning them to make sure they were compliant.
Absolutely. So making like a like an EXP
Yeah,
compliance that we can
exactly.
just continue building on like over the years, and if we go back and do more challenges like this, can have to share with everybody else. I think that's an awesome idea.
Were we thinking like hard copy or soft copy? Something that we could add.
Or you
later.
can publish them and make some money.
I like corporate to come in. So we could start with like basically like if everybody submits it, I could create like a PDF book that we could share. Does that sound good?
And if you have a picture too, that would be.
Yes. Yes. So why don't we do this, guys? Why don't you guys? This is my email for here. It's just Tiffany@CrossFitEXP.com. Because I know sometimes it's hard to pull off of Facebook. Yeah, and not everybody has Facebook. So this is my email. So if you guys want to write that down and all shoot me what your favorite recipe was throughout the whole 30, I can start that for us. Does that sound good?
And fall tips.